Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned in to another live edition of the LockerGnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short, your daily dose of not just the news, but answers that you can use, like an answer to the or an answer to the question: is Chris still fighting with the Elgato Game Capture HD60 on his computer? The answer is yes, because what you may be seeing and hearing, or hearing, is great. On my end, I'm still frozen like this. And if you can't see me because you're listening to the podcast, just assume I'm not moving right now, apart from talking. Okay, here. That's what I look like on my end. That's what I sound like on my end. I've been troubleshooting with their, support. They had sent me the device, if only because the YouTube broadcasting tool decided to just die on me last week. And of course, YouTube support was zero help, because apparently I don't have a billion subscribers. And, I know they got to prioritize and everything. Google's not exactly known for its support. Not really what it does for anything. Hardware, services, software. Not even when you pay them. Not even if you buy something from them. They just... good luck. I'm not saying I pay YouTube, but I pay into Google Drive. And what other things have I bought from Google? I've bought their devices in the past. So, nah. Wasn't really a sentence. I've really been playing around with a lot of possibilities here in my workshop. Last night, you may have caught, well, I think one of you did catch me playing Geometry Wars 3 on my iPad. I was testing the HDMI out capabilities of the iPad, specifically through the digital AV converter. It plugged it directly into the computer and was streaming Geometry Wars live. And believe it or not, that was the one time I was streaming live that I actually beat the first level, and got 3 stars. It was pretty cool. And so I just saved the video. It's like a minute and a half, and it's me playing a video game online. But I was doing that anyway because across the workshop, and anybody who's been following me for any degree of time knows that I have an arcade. Well, I mean, a machine, a single machine. I've been turning to Periscope and playing like classic games. It's like retro gaming. It's a lot of fun for me and taking requests. The problem is twofold. One, I can't find the perfect position for my phone. I got a Gorilla Pod, or I picked it up from the production room downstairs and had it sitting like right there on the top of the arcade where all the buttons and the controls are. And it was working. I mean, I got it at a pretty decent angle, but then the clamp was like loose, and then I accidentally started broadcasting. So a few people got to see me playing Millipede this morning. And every time I looked at the chat, I died. That's not something I want to do. So in order to live stream a game of any kind, I almost need some kind of person with me to be able to read chat or to interact in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, I'm not able to respond. And we tried doing this last night, and it didn't work well because Jedi was a little fussy. So Diane had to leave me, and I played classic games. And the problem is that, again, it's fun to do those live streams and have people tune in. But to me, the value of a live stream is really being able to interact at a deep, deep, deep level. It's something that we try to do when we broadcast to YouTube in every way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's not always practical. You might remember... eons ago, I integrated the chat from live.pirillo.com into the screen, or specifically the video and then the screen. I couldn't do that because, unfortunately, I had to stop doing it because the amount of people who were abusing it, it just took one person to ruin it for everybody. And I'd like to bring live chat back into the video in some way, shape, or form, but it can't always happen because inevitably there's just one person out of the billions of people on the planet who decides to waste my time and ruin it for everybody. So, this has been my morning. This has been my day. Wrestling with software. Wrestling! I've been wrestling with software. It's what I do. It's part of what I do. It's not the only thing I do. I do a lot of other things, like flip the page on the calendar for the Force Friday countdown. Since it is Friday. Oh, today it's a Kenner Star Wars laser pistol. I never really had guns growing up, honestly. It wasn't really a thing. We didn't have a lot of that stuff. I didn't even have a lightsaber when I was a kid. I wasn't really into weapons. Wasn't my thing. Even growing up in the Midwest, where I guess, it's okay to shoot things. These creatures that are small and furry and cute and potentially tasty. I don't know what the moral compass is for everybody out there. I don't want to shoot anything. I really don't. I'll laser something, yeah, with a lightsaber, but that's completely different than a blaster, you know. Anyway, that's the item of the day for today. And what's on the agenda? I'm glad you asked. Well, the title of this particular video, we're going to kind of change things up because I think this is going to work very well because I know a lot of people out there have been using deals.lockergnome.com. So we're going to take the Prime deal that we've been featuring on deals.lockergnome.com and use that as the basis for the title of TLDR because it makes sense. So today, on deals.lockergnome.com, we have the Turbo X Mini Drone at 40% off, a build your own WordPress site guide, a Freezedom Ringer cooler with speaker at 16% off, and a productive entrepreneur course bundle for free at deals.lockergnome.com. You want to be an entrepreneur? Great. I'm an entrepreneur. Do you want to be a productive entrepreneur? Save some money in the process. Get it for free. There you go. Deals.lockergnome.com. But the Turbo X Mini Drone is kind of it's interesting to me. I mean, yes, it's 40% off, but you know, we were out the other day, and this is going to show up in the daily vlog. I assume everybody out there watches the daily vlogs that we do on the Pirillo Vlogs YouTube channel. We do one every day, hence it being a daily vlog. The evening was wearing on, and Diana came into the house. She said, "I think I heard a drone." So I walk outside, and we heard chatter in the distance, but she saw the drone. So I was trying to get it and record the drone from a distance. And after this drone went up, a couple hours later, someone got on our neighborhood website and posted and say, "Hey, to whoever was flying the drone, stop it in the neighborhood because, you know, it's a little weird." I mean, I have no problem with drones outright, but I think that's really where there's a potential misuse of the technology. This is the thing that really holds me back from embracing a lot of tech like the way I've done in the past, is just realizing how can this be abused? And all it takes is one wackadoo to record footage of the neighbor's house where they thought they were safe and private with windows or whatever, and suddenly that privacy is violated because every other drone has got a camera on it. So, you know, I kind of hold myself back. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. I respect people's decisions. It's like when I vlog, I don't like vlogging people who don't realize that I'm vlogging. Don't want to be vlogged. It's their privacy. I can't do a lot of the things that other vloggers do because I don't want to break the law, and B, I don't want to violate someone's right to privacy. And a lot of people do. And I think it's rude, and it does more to destroy the value of what it is that you're doing than it does to bolster it. So now I'm not saying that the person who was flying the drone in the neighborhood was doing anything nefarious with it at all. But still, the potential, you know, was certainly there and is absolutely there. And if one person starts flying a drone, they all start flying a drone. It just takes one wackadoo to take a picture of Chris Pirillo's pee-pee. That's something I never thought I'd really talk about today, but I just did. If you want your own Turbo X Mini Drone, don't fly it in your neighborhood. Respect other people's privacies. Privacies? Sure. Or take it to a public park. You know, fly it in places where other people are, and just remember that they may not have given you permission to record them if you decide to record things. It is a Friday, which means it is an AMA, and I'm very, very happy to answer people's questions on a regular basis. So, Joe Tashi, he's there fighting for freedom wherever there's trouble. Joe Tashi is there. Joe Tashi. Would you do a techie tour of your office and show how things are wired and set up? I don't know. It doesn't sound too exciting, just curious. You know, it's funny. I got contacted by a guy. He does tech videos on YouTube, which is like a billion people now. Hey, did you see my review of the product? You and which million? Oh, great. Okay, you've got tech videos. That's awesome. Okay, so you're just like everybody else. Awesome. Give me something unique. Layer your experience on top of I don't care about specs. Tell me what you think. I want to get to know you for who you are. That is when I'm going to appreciate your review. When I know who you are. Otherwise, it's just a spec sheet. Give me something unique. Give me something different. Anybody can show benchmarks. In fact, benchmarks can be cheated. Anyway, okay, I'm going off on a tear. So this guy contacted me. And he says, "Hey, you want to show off your setup there in your workshop? He didn't call it a workshop. He called it an office, as most people do. I want to call it a workshop because that sounds way more awesome. Plus, it's like my grandfather used to call his workshop. I explained, I'm like, I don't know if I've necessarily got the envy of, every person out there. Like, you've got people out there with like a billion monitors set up on their computer and specced out and not even water cooled. It's like cooled from the magma from the sun or something. Well, that'd be a horrible way of cooling something. Never mind. The ice planet Hoth that's got the ice running through it is super, super cool. I don't care. I don't care. I don't watch those videos. I'm not interested in the slightest. I understand people want to brag about that stuff, and that's awesome. It's cool. Other people want to do that. But I joked about this on several occasions, but like last year, I going back to my arcade machine, either last year or earlier this year, I can't remember, I went through a quote-unquote great cable purge, where I went through my workshop and I eliminated everything that I could possibly think. Like, a cable. Where does this go to? This goes nowhere. What's this cable go to? A piece of crap. Oh, what's this cable go to? Junk. What's this cable go to? Something that I haven't used in years. Why is it still plugged in? I don't know. Is this computer even relevant anymore? Is this running BOS? What is this? And I got rid of it. I did the great cable purge this year. And it was actually kind of cathartic. I ended up with this massive... You remember that? Had that gigantic pile of cables there in my workshop, like on the pile, about the floor. I think I may have vlogged it too. And I got rid of everything. I'm just like, the cables going to here, there, wherever, and I didn't need them anymore. When I set up the cables originally, Wi-Fi was just, it was there, but nowhere near like it is today. Didn't have near the throughput. And quite honestly, I had products, strewn about, like lights and lamps and, gadgets and gizmos. And I just realized, this is broken. Why is it plugged in? Wait, this has wireless capability. Why do I have it plugged into it? Why am I stringing wires across and wasting electricity? I'm done. I went wireless. And in many cases, got rid of a lot of junk. Well, tech, product, gadgets, but they were junk. It just turned into junk. I mean, there are certain pieces of technology that I would want to collect. But for the most part, all technology does, if it just piles up and you're not using it, is just collect dust. And, if something around here is going to be collecting dust, it's going to be collectible. Okay? Okay. So, the short answer to your question is my technology here is boring. Well, Jedi, I don't know what to do. I don't want to add more things to my array of whatevers. I want fewer things, honestly, because I don't want to be strapped with problems. And that sometimes is what technology does. It just creates more problems. I got a new encoder I'm having problems with. Trying to get something to work, I have problems with. And I get it done, and it's working, and then it's good. But, like, I've got the iMac, the 5K Retina Display iMac, whatever the hell it's called, the official product name. I haven't really ever done a review on it. I did it once for the patrons, or at least the unboxing of it. And what I'm planning on doing is 7 things I like about the iMac 5K, whatever the hell, and 7 things I don't like. So you get both sides of the equation. That's going to be the ongoing edited video series that you'll find on my classic YouTube channel. But anyway, I just want fewer things, not more things. So I've actually, over time, gotten rid of a lot of things. For the longest time, I had 2 monitors back here, and what I realized is, A, man, that was sucking up a lot of energy. And B, I really wasn't taking advantage of that second monitor. It's not like I did a lot of gaming. I have applications. I'm not a developer. I only needed that second screen primarily for chat. That's what it got used for the most part. And, of course, it looked awesome, too. But, I realized, do I really need 2 screens? Now, going back from 2 screens to 1 took a little getting used to, but it wasn't so bad. I accommodated it. It was fine. I accommodated it evenly there. It worked. So, I got that plugged in. And I got the MacBook, not latest gen 15-inch, but a previous gen, I think, 15-inch. That's plugged in. And this camera's plugged in. And the arcade machine is now plugged in. I went so far with the Great Cable Purge this year or last year, whenever the hell I did it. Someone could probably tell me. I went so far that I accidentally chucked the power cable for the arcade machine. I mean, how the hell did I do that? I don't know. I did it, but I ended up ordering a new one. Thank you, everybody. I crowdsourced. I'm like, I'm looking for this kind of cable. Is this a standard cable? Do I need to get a certain kind? I plugged it in the other day, and I'm working again. So that's the only other computer I have in the workshop. Everything else, I really I did my best to eliminate as much as I possibly could, if only because it was a energy savings more than anything. Fewer things you run, the fewer things you have to worry about, the more money you can actually save with less tech. And so I just look for tech to solve problems, tools. I play games, yes, classic games, mobile games. At this stage, not really any desktop games or any console games. But, it's energy efficiency, and it's also efficiency in terms of getting the job done. These are technology's a series of tools to me. So what do I need? What do I use? What more might I need to get the job done? I'm a big believer in streamlining. So things aren't really wired around here. That's the thing. I'm a huge proponent of going wireless, if at all possible, or not using it at all. Do I really need this? Is this really going to make my life better? No, it's gone. Is this going to be a risk? Yes, it's gone. Is this just taking up space and not collectible? It's gone. Does this have Darth Vader on it? It stays. Those are my rules. If you want the flow chart of Chris Pirillo, it's always going to be wireless over wired. Always. Just assume that. Just assume it. Joe Tashi asks, do you have a developer account with Apple, and do you think it's worth it? Okay, so I just, actually, Joe, I posted something the other day, and this was just to patrons, but it ended up going live in a new blog that I talked about yesterday that is kind of soft launched. I'm basically rebooting Pirillo.com to be more intelligence-driven and really talking through some of the more serious topics that I want to talk about that otherwise would get lost in the fray. And it's specifically my perspectives on the tech industry and what it's like to be me, but specifically from a professional sense. Less, frippery. Not to say this is frippery or anything, but there's certain things that I want to talk about, especially when I see something and I want to make a comment on it. Where do I make a comment on Facebook? It gets ignored. Do I make a comment in general? It just gets ignored. I needed a place to make comments about things that the foundation of my being and how I look at technology. So I posted something the other day. It is public at Pirillo.com now, but patrons got it beforehand because, giving you, a leg up and, giving you a chance for feedback. And really the only place to make comments on that post, because I turned off comments on the blog. Apple's done something with Xcode 7 to allow the side loading of code into an app to be compiled for your iOS device. And by doing so, effectively allowing anybody to circumvent, you don't even need to pay for a developer account. Anybody can circumvent legally, through licensing, circumvent having a developer account and build their own code for apps on their own devices. Meaning you could compile code to create apps that otherwise would never get accepted in the App Store. So I wrote about it at some length. This is a pretty good deal, honestly, for anybody who wants to try with the code. Is a developer account worth paying for? If you're not a developer, no, it's not worth paying for. I'll be flat out honest with you. If you are a developer, absolutely. And especially if you're a developer who's serious about making money with your products. Now, that doesn't mean that just because you spend $99, you're going to make that back. In fact, most developers these days, because there's an amazing array of great applications on a variety of platforms, the chances of you striking it rich with an app are between slim and none. I'll be flat out honest. Even if it's the most amazing app. I might have created the most amazing video on YouTube, but here's the thing. Its value is only contingent upon how many people actually see it. And that's frustrating. This is obviously valuable to you. You're asking me the question, you're getting a response. But the problem is the way the marketplace these days values that kind of content is specifically in relation to ad revenue. This is why I'm giving priority to patrons, because without patrons, without people who pledge $2 on up and get tons of bonuses, without them supporting me in that way, I wouldn't be able to do it. In fact, I've even thought about, we've got the $2 on up, and that's been great for some people, but I thought about just going, okay, well, if people are supporting it too, are they just as willing to support at $5 and potentially restructuring it? I don't know how that's going to play out. I haven't made any decisions yet. I hesitate to change. But for me, it's about the effort that I put into it and making sure I can get, what I put into it, I want to get out of it, honestly. And that's how you have to make a decision with life. I don't work for catharsis. Nobody works for catharsis. You work to get the job done, and you work because this is how you carve out a living. So Unfortunately, with content, much like it is with apps, just because you've made something amazing doesn't mean you've got a pathway or gate. This is your gateway to success. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. Why then am I launching a new blog that's specifically, more think pieces, not necessarily, run of the mill news? Well, because I recognize that I have certain things that I want to say. And there was one announcement from Apple last week that really, really made the change for me. Apple's announced the News app and allows anybody to subscribe in the News app. And so I'm basically going to, it's going to be very, very, very Apple-centric, very tech-centric, very consumer-centric, very me. But still, like I said, it's going to skew very heavily in terms of Apple. And I think the primary gateway for people reading that blog is going to be the News app in iOS. So I'm creating a blog effectively for the News app in iOS. And the reason why is because I think people want that from me. I'm able to do it, quote unquote, for free and not run any ads on the site because Apple's News app allows you to run ads and do splits. And I'm like, great, I will build up my readership there. And I will do it in such a way that I know I can count on you as a supporter. Joe Tashi asks, Chris, will you be getting... Joe, boy, you are on a roll. Will you be getting the new Star Wars Lego sets? Also, where'd you get your arcade cabinet? It's really cool. And what OS do you run on it? Joe, I am planning on getting some new Lego Star Wars sets. I can't get them all, unfortunately. I wish I could. But, unless I've got, the ability to offset costs or to, figure out what I can do with them such that what I put into it, I can get out of it. I may just be very, very... picky and choosy about which sets I pick up. Kind of like how I try to be picky and choosy with the toys that I get. Because otherwise I just get too much. And I don't want too much. I want to enjoy all the things, but at the same time, I have to be very realistic in terms of what I get. I'm excited for them. Absolutely. Especially if they make a Darth Vader helmet that's all melted and stuff in Lego. That'd be great. Also, where'd you get the arcade cabinet? It's running a very older version of Windows. Very old. Like Windows 95 or something like that. I don't know. 98 even? No. Is it running 98? I can't remember. It's old. In fact, if you look at my classic YouTube channel, I think I saved for posterity the live streaming the day the arcade cabinet arrived here in the workshop. I've got that video. Like, I'm getting a cabinet, my arcade... I can't remember what I called it. But it's a Dream Arcades, I believe. They basically build them, customize them to order, and there would probably be, if I upgraded, there would probably be something better today. But right now what I have works, and I hope it doesn't break anytime soon, because otherwise it's going to be very, very expensive to replace. I like having it there. I haven't always played games, but, I really kind of like getting back into the idea of playing these classics and the retro stuff, especially if I can figure out the interactivity level with the live community. Tony asks, question number 66. Tony's one of the few. He's the one of two people who have seen my spicy noodle challenge video. That's going to be a vlog. It's pretty much the vlog that day. Question 66. Execute order 66. Or question 66. Sorry, not order. What is your opinion on product insurance like AppleCare? Is it worth it or a sucker bet? Depends. Like, if I go in and buy like a stupid piece of equipment for, it's inconsequential. Would you like to add $20 for product insurance? No. Because if this thing breaks, I'm just going to replace it with something that's not a piece of crap. Quite honestly. I mean, it's the cost of, hardware. Because let's face it, like, I'd say a lot of tech out there isn't worth spending money on. So why would I want to spend more money on something that I don't think is going to be all that great to begin with? There are definitely exceptions to the rule. So for AppleCare, I have AppleCare on my iMac, I believe, and the MacBook. I don't have AppleCare, however, on my phone or the iPad, because I'm going to hold on to those products for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, but I'm going to likely be turning over the phone and the iPad or the tablets every year. So it doesn't make sense for me to put AppleCare on things, despite the fact that I'm more likely to break the screen on a portable device than I am on a desktop device, but it's not necessarily the screen that I'm worried about with the bigger systems. It's that more things could likely fail in those bigger systems. More moving components, more moving parts, more components. So to me, it depends. How long do I expect I'm going to have it? How much do I expect I'm going to use it? And that is how I calculate, do I really want to get, extended warranty? I don't necessarily get extended warranties from stores. Apple Care is the only extended warranty type of service, or Apple Care in general, has been the only thing that's been worth it for me. Quite honestly. I will tell you, flat out. It's never failed me. The only time that I had an issue with Apple support, and it wasn't even an issue, only thing that wasn't ever covered by Apple, with or without Apple Care, was and they don't know who I am sometimes. Sometimes they do recognize me, but usually when I'm getting support, they don't know that I do this kind of stuff. It was someone had broken a screen. The screen had shattered, and I had to pay to replace it. That's one thing they can't do with the Macs, at least. But I've had issues where and that was a video I recorded, I think, a couple of years ago. I dropped my phone, and they replaced the screen. It wasn't an issue. It was not even close to being an issue. They probably gave me a refurb, and you know what? I was fine with that. I got a clean screen. So, that's how I usually address it, on a case-by-case basis. I never him and haw and go, I don't know, is it really going to be worth it? I don't know. I'll wait. It's kind of like I'm waiting on the consoles. I'll wait. Wait until I need it. Wait until I want it, but am I really going to use it? The one console that has stayed with me for all the years is that arcade machine, because I can play all my classics. I can't Twitch with it. I can't easily stream to YouTube with it, but you know what? I don't feel I need to. Question number 67. Do you think that operating systems will ever be truly optimized, i.e. iOS 9? Because as hardware specs increase, so does the demand for the software. It always seems like a balancing act that has no end. Yes, I believe so, but if done correctly, I believe that performance is not going to come at a cost of overall experience. So Apple released with iOS 8 the idea that developers could optimize their apps for Metal. They didn't integrate it at the OS level until now we're seeing with iOS 9 or with OS 10, 11, El Capitan, the next version of OS 10. Metal is basically going to transform Mac OS 10. Or, sorry, it's just OS 10, not Mac OS 10 anymore. It's going to transform the OS, because it's going to be a lot more responsive. So is Apple going to figure out another better way of doing it down the line? It's a possibility, for sure. Is Metal long overdue? I believe so. I could have used that a couple of versions ago. Am I happy to see it coming out of the pike now, or coming down the pike now? Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I could have used it a while ago. But to me, Tony, software is in a constant state of evolution. Hardware is pretty much locked in, right? Granted, you might have a PC and you can change components in it and everything, but for the most part, I'd say hardware is pretty locked in. Software will continue to be refined to work better to support the hardware. And I don't know if I can ever see a day where it's going to be truly optimized, because there's never going to be such thing. It's software is a living being. It's a breathing being. It can change. It can modify. To this point, this hardware is going to be the same, but the moment I put the final version of iOS 9 on here, theoretically, it's going to get better because of Metal integration and optimizations. How much better, I don't know. I've only played around with the developer builds of iOS. A few minutes ago, Joe asked if a developer license was worth paying for. For most people, I say no, it's not, because you can do most everything that you might want to do with the developer's license aside from submitting apps to the App Store. You might be able to get preview builds early, but why would you want to do that? Wait for the public beta at this stage. It'll be better, and you don't have to pay anything. So get it for free. Wait. You can wait. If you can wait, unless you really, really absolutely need to have it. But I was curious, and I have it. I have a developer license because I have an app in the App Store. That's my story. So, is it worth iOS 9 beta 1? If you're not a developer, don't waste your time. Do not waste your time. Don't waste your time. Wait for the beta. That's my semi-professional opinion about iOS 9 in its current state. Software is always going to be evolving. It's always going to get better, and I love that. The software is going to make this hardware better. That is the power of software to me. I love that. I love that about software. Question number 68. Have you noticed that a lot of the stuff they talked about at WWDC were eerily similar to what Google I/O announced? Haha. Multifunctioning iPads, or what Microsoft Surface has been doing, Apple playing catch-up. I'd argue that every company's playing catch-up. There's no, I wouldn't, a lot of people say, oh, Apple's playing catch up. Well, Google in certain ways is playing catch up to Apple. I mean, look at some of the things they announced, like, app level permissions, like, specifically in the app, optimize, you can now toggle permissions on demand within apps within at least Android, the next version of Android M, doesn't really have a name yet. Thank you, hun.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to grab the burrito that you made with the hand that I've been using to touch my foot.
Why are you touching your...
Well, I wasn't doing it because I was having fun with it, hon. I was just... Great, now I need to kill the germs. No, not my callus. Hon, I don't want to talk about my callus. This is not discussion I want to have during a time that I want to geek out with my peeps. Did you see my mom posted the word peeps in Facebook the other day? The word is dead, folks. When I start using the word peeps, you can't sit on Daddy's lap right now. He's mookied. Okay, back to WWDC copycat or catching up. I really don't like when this word's used. Not peeps, catching up, or this phrase, because the companies are always catching up. Always. Google caught up in terms of design. And they really caught. In fact, I'd say they surpassed Apple in terms of design ethos. Microsoft was playing catch up. There is no winner in a race that never ends. So I know that's not how you intended to say it, but I would argue that Android M has done more to quote-unquote catch up to what Apple's been doing than I think Apple playing catch up to what other entities have been doing in respect to iOS 9. Getting the idea of, quote-unquote multitasking. I think people kind of confuse the tech term multitasking with the idea of doing more than one thing on the screen at one time. Or basically having two things on the screen at one time. That is it's fascinating to see how it's going to play out. Am I interested? Sure. I would love... Honestly, in doing these streams, I would love to have notes on one side and a chat on the other. I can't do that right now with one screen on an iPad. I can do it with a computer, but a computer is bulky by comparison. So, I think to me, the function of Apple moving forward, I did blog about this as well, and I'm going to point you to that. That's the Pirillo.com, the new blog that they're think pieces. They're not, knee-jerk reactions. They're well thought out, or I believe well thought out, not like just, here's the news. It's my perspective. I'm layering on my opinions. To me, what Apple did is deeper than that. What they did, it just look closely. I called it the Goopocalypse. I shared this with patrons yesterday. It's now out for everybody. The Goopocalypse is upon us. Basically, look at the small things that Apple did. The tiny, minuscule things that Apple did. Search or Spotlight. You can now do things that normally you'd have to go to Google for. Search within iOS. You swipe and suddenly you have more than you expected. It's finding things that you didn't realize you needed to find. At every corner, Apple is cutting Google out of the picture. At every corner. Google is getting eliminated. Down to one of the features that I think a lot of people are going to love about iOS 9 is that the ability to content block. So now you can block ads. That's great. Unless you're someone who generates revenue from advertising. That sucks. So, A, I find more patrons. B, I stop publishing free content, which people aren't going to like, yet they block ads anyway, so I'm kind of like, well, those aren't really my... If you block ads and you don't support me as a patron, you're not a supporter. I don't want you around me. You're not a part of anything I would consider to be a community. Apple's basically integrating content filtering at the OS level. So, in turn, what they've done with that is... Just think this through, people. Think beyond what it is. Think about the implications of what it's doing. Content blocking. Why would people do this? To block ads. Who sells ads? Who makes money with ads? Google. It's how they make their money. Look at everything Apple announced. They said, well, we'll do this deep app linking, this behavior, blah, 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 and it's all private. This is the anti-Google. Privacy is suddenly a feature. And I talked about this last year. But of course, people either didn't catch it, they forgot, or I'm not big enough. So... This is going to be a big differentiating factor for Apple. because Google's like, well, they can't argue the same thing. Google doesn't want your privacy because it's like the antithesis of your privacy. They're giving you values because of all the deep scanning and intelligence that they're applying, but they're not going far enough to be able to protect you and your privacy. Apple's going a step further. Not saying Google's not doing it in one way is better than the other. It's just that you have to decide, and it's down to you. Is that level of privacy enough? Are you willing to give Google what you're giving them? I am. What I give Google, I have no issue with. I have no issue with ads. But by adding content blocking at the OS level with iOS 9, and assumedly it'll happen in OS 10, they're basically saying, oh, you can block Google ads. Google is got to be going, oh crap, we got a lot of people who use iOS. A lot. And if iOS makes it easy to block ads, how are we going to make money on iOS? Yeah, that's a toughie. But in tow, again, I love talking about this. So Apple announced the News app. Now you might be thinking, Chris, why would they? Oh, they're trying to kill Flipboard. No. Newsstand, for all intents and purposes, would have died a slow and horrible death if Apple didn't approach this particular situation with the strategy that they're taking. Apple announces the News app. It's not available in the iOS beta 1. Likely it will be, or in the public beta, it will likely be available, the first public beta, but not the developer first beta. So, in the News app, they are completely transparent. They say, very clearly, hey, you can run ads on your content. They were transparent. If you sell your own ads, you get 100%. If we sell your ads, you get 70%. And I'm like, it's just plain as day. I'm like, it's clear. I'm like, oh my God. That's huge news for publishers. Huge news. This is not a Flipboard clone. Anybody who calls the News app a Flipboard clone doesn't know their ass from their elbow. It allows you to read news. It allows you to subscribe to RSS feeds. It allows you to discover new things. Yes. That's where the similarities begin and end. It's not. It may kill Flipboard, but it's not a clone for one reason and one reason alone. Okay, let me put two and two together for you, folks. Hang on. I gotta add another thing, and then I'll put one and one together for three, because it's a trifecta. So they need to take as much attention away from Google as possible, right? Because they can, and they control the platform. It's up to them. So they allow you to block ads. Let's face it, content filtering is an ad blocker. Then they allow publishers, instead of publishing on their own domain and running the risk of people blocking ads, they allow publishers to be discovered through the News app, a unified News app, which people are likely going to be turning to for a lot of the news, a lot of the things they subscribe to. That's great. That's awesome. That's epic. I'm all for it. So in that app that they've created, that walled garden of sorts, they allow you to sell ads, or they will sell ads, independent of the content filtering. Okay? Now, the third component is, well, then why the News app? Why are they building up the way it is? Because they've been looking for another way to sell iPads. How do we sell more iPads? How do we get more value to people? Well, you could use News app on an older iPad, yes, but only newer iPads have enough hardware within them to be able to support the split screening, so you can be reading your news and tweeting at the same time. It's driving the adoption forward. As I blogged about on a separate post, commenting on someone who wrote an article on BuzzFeed complaining, and rightfully so, that Apple has lackluster default apps. Apple doesn't need to have amazing default apps. Apple's only going to develop software if and when it fits Apple, and it's going to allow them to sell more hardware. Apple is in the game of selling hardware. Now, so is the News app going to sell more hardware? It's possibly going to get a few people to upgrade. That is one situation, that's one value that Apple's going to have that's going to further separate it from Google. I mean, trust me, at every turn in the coming years, you're going to see Apple eliminating Google from the equation completely, entirely, wholesale. And you can see it over and over and over again with these minor feature tweaks that they're adding to their next level operating system on the desktop and on their mobile devices. They're going to, I think, make a big impact with the News app. I think the News app is going to be huge. I really do. It's going to hurt Google a lot. It's going to help publishers, and it's going to hurt Google. As a publisher, as someone who wants to write, I can't write for free. Now, if you work for a publisher, you get paid for what you write. I don't work for a publisher. Like, no one's going, hey, Chris, you want to write an article for us? Or if they did, it's like, well, pay you 5 cents for your article. No. Well, I can't spend my time there. I can't. If I'm going to write something that I believe has value, I want to make sure I'm getting enough value out of it. So building up this new blog, Pirillo.com, it's all about my analysis and insight and intelligence that I've accrued over 20 years in doing this. It's built specifically with the iOS News app in mind, even though it lives on the web. And you can subscribe in RSS. There's not a single ad that's running on that website right now. And I don't know if I'm going to run an ad on the website. I'll sell sponsorships. I'll go that path. And I'll be happy to do that. So, to me, it's about Apple not catching up, but in many ways becoming the anti-Google. It really is. Apple's going to increasingly become the opposite of Google. Did I get too hot in here? Is it just me? Whoa, holy cow, have I really been broadcasting that long? Sorry, hon. I have been broadcasting that long, and there are people that I have to address questions for because they're patrons, and they deserve it. This is going to be a long TLDR. Man, you know what I wish I could do? Back in the day, hey, Wicket, sorry it was buzzing. Back in the day, we used to do TLDR and then carve it up into individual videos. I could probably do it again, but we just did too many videos that way. And people they wouldn't watch half the videos that I did. And quite honestly, half the things I talk about aren't interesting to YouTube viewers in the slightest. Like, they just want the gee-whiz 3-minute stuff, and that's just not what I do. Podcast is, or a podcast is more my speed. Steve Mannering asks on the topic of cars, I'm enjoying your car reviews, even though I'm not a car aficionado. Cool. Your perspective as someone who just wants to get from point A to point B with a little comfort is something I can relate to. Are you ready to make the plunge to an all-electric vehicle, or do you prefer the reliability of hybrids and gas stations everywhere? Steve, electric vehicles are awesome. The Kia Soul that I drove, the 100% electric, was great. The infrastructure, however, needs a lot of help, and that's the thing that would keep me from going full-on electric. Austin asks, hey, Chris, these days almost everybody's using internet on their phones, computers, or tablets, so why do companies charge for the commodity? Thanks, Austin. Because they can, and people are willing to pay for it, and they don't want to go against their data plan. They want to connect to a network that doesn't cost them anything versus worrying they're going to get charged an extra $10. I say, hey, get charged the extra $10 and trust, quote unquote, trust the network you're connecting to versus connecting to an untrusted network. So they'll continue to charge, and it's their prerogative, and most people would go that route because it's perceived to be faster. But as has been seen by even the benchmarks that I was running the other day with Jerry, he was over here and he was doing his first Periscope. His network speeds sucked. They were horrible. AT&T had a horrible network speed in the location. I ran the same benchmark, same app, and it was like 1 billion times faster. Same location, not on AT&T though. So it could be a perceived issue of speed or bandwidth or whatever it happens to be. I don't have an answer to that question. Everybody, ultimately decides if they're willing to pay for it or not. That's the best price. The best price is knowing, or is specifically pricing it such that people will pay for it. If people don't want it, they won't pay for it. If people think it's too high, they won't necessarily pay for it. Mitchell C. McClendon asks, since returning the iPhone, I bought the iPhone 5S and instead the 6. So, wait, hang on. Oh, instead of the 6, I guess. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to experience the changes that are coming to iOS. My question is, what do they mean by adding Metal? Thanks. Metal is just the name of the part of the platform that's basically going to allow the hardware, or I guess the software, the platform, to better connect with the hardware. So what that translates as, things are going to be snappier because there's less overhead. So they've eliminated a lot of overhead, and at the OS level, they've made everything snappier. So anything that's built on top of that is optimized for it. So metal isn't a thing. They're not actually adding physical metal necessarily. They're talking about code that is further optimizing the speed of the platform outright, and then making certain, allowing for certain optimizations for developers to tweak their games, their apps, etc. So just by making this tweak at the system level, this is what I'm saying. They're going to make it easier for developers, A, and B, they're going to make the same hardware you're using today even better when the code is final. Right now in beta form, if they've incorporated metal, I hadn't seen it in the iPad Mini 2 that I was running. That's crazy. Matt's asking something, I guess. Oh, cool. Apparently a subdomain for YouTube, gaming.youtube.com/coming_soon. Weird. Okay. I was just experimenting with a game last night. Boy, of all timing, as they say, is everything. I've wanted to Twitch though. I got to figure out if I should do it though. I don't know. Twitch makes me nervous. I think the community around Twitch makes me nervous more than anything. They tend to be arrogant and very, very not nice. So I don't like being around arrogant and very not nice people. Brian H. asks, hey again. Well, it's not really a question. First of all, just wanted to say I got my LG G4 on Verizon last weekend and love it. The phone is everything you said it was and more. That's awesome. The only complaint, or rather thing I don't understand completely, is why Verizon turned off LG's factory-equipped smart actions in their release. Because every OEM and every carrier wants to layer their own experience on top of Android. So that's really what it is. They want more control. They want to make it theirs, and Android allows them to do that. That's why you get a different Android experience depending on your carrier, depending on the OEM, depending on everything, which is great because you get another option. You get to choose the option you want, theoretically. I mean, if you're stuck with a carrier, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, if you're with a carrier and you have no option of switching, you're kind of just, you're relying on the devices that they provide. I don't fault LG, I don't fault Google, and I don't fault Verizon at all. That's just how the ecosystem works. It's up to them and their decisions and how they're playing it out. So Brian, I'm glad you took my review on the LG G4, which was a patron exclusive, and took it to heart and actually got an LG G4. That's great news. As a matter of fact, this week I recorded my 7 things I like about the LG G4. Next week I'm going to record the 7 things I don't like about the LG G4. It's very balanced that way. Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get accused of being biased anyway. You're biased! Well, I did a video that's just the opposite. So, oops, I guess you didn't do your research. Steve Mannering says, for some time, and boy, you guys are coming up with great questions. For some time now, you've been saying the smartphone or tablet will be the only computer some people have. In fact, an ex-coworker who recently retired hasn't hooked up his new desktop because he's been doing everything on his cheap Android phone. How did you feel when the VP of Apple validated this prediction of yours by saying the iPad is the main computer for a lot of people? Well, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I've been saying it for years. I personally think that the main, if only reason I can't replace my iMac with an iPad is the lack of a file manager like Finder. If iOS ever gets Finder, the ability to connect to drives hooked up to a wireless router, and Apple makes a docking station for iPad to connect to external monitors with keyboards, I may never buy an iMac or MacBook again. What would it take for you to replace your iMac with an iPad? Split screen mode for the iPad Air 2. I'm disappointed not available for my iPads. My guess is because the iPad Air 2 is the only iOS device with 2 gigs of RAM. Gimmick or powerful new feature? Not a gimmick, powerful feature, and yes, I would believe you are correct. The iPad to this point has only been optimized hardware-wise for one app at a time, effectively, and having 2 gigs of RAM has afforded Apple the opportunity to do a feature like that. They're not going to just roll out the feature. It's not the feature, it's the implementation. If it doesn't work well, they're not going to make it work the way that people want it to work. That's the difference between Apple and every other OEM on the planet. So, in terms of having a Finder in iOS, you're going to have it in iOS 9. There will be a toggle for you to turn off or on iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive will effectively be that hard drive, the quote-unquote hard drive. It'll be Apple's, but you'll be able to use it on iOS, iCloud Drive. You can hide it. It'll be hidden by default, and I think that's the way to do it. That's not what's holding me back. I don't care about file management. I hate file management. I never want to manage files. Remember, I'm the kind of guy who will pay a music subscription service so I don't have to manage media. I don't want to manage. My life is too short to manage files. I'm tired of managing files. I don't want to do it ever again for the rest of my life. So it's good that's where you sit, Steve. I'm well beyond that. Like most consumers, I don't care. I want my files to be there. I don't want to manage them. So that's all I want to think about. I hate managing things. I loathe managing things. Hey, Chris, what do you like to do in your spare time? Manage things. No, it's not. You're never going to hear me respond that way. So to me, the thing that keeps me on a Mac or a desktop class system is specifically the Pro software. I use Final Cut Pro pretty much every day to edit videos for the vlog channel. I use it to encode live streams. At some point in the future, it's not going to be practical to do. At some point in the future, the iPad may become my full-on broadcast tool, stem to stern. I mean, hell, look at what Periscope's doing. It's not perfect. I don't like the fact that it records vertical video or is optimized for vertical video, but it works. Is it perfect? No, but it works. It's going to get better. It's going to improve over time, and eventually, I may see myself floating more of that direction. My primary computer is not my iMac. It's not my MacBook Pro. It's my phone. It's my primary system because I use it all the time for a great many things. I use my MacBook to edit video. I use my iMac as a desktop destination. My center, my control center, if you will. And I find that I'm an anomaly. Pro tools and I don't mean the software Pro tools, but the pro level tools. Final Cut Pro. That's what keeps me on the desktop. Nothing else. No, I can't think of anything else. Streaming software, yes, because it's powerful enough. The system, it's beefy enough to handle a lot of things. So that's what I use it for primarily. Aaron Westerndorp, and this is the last question. What is your dream cosplay, either for you or someone else? I don't know if it's a dream cosplay, but I would like to figure out how to get a dark helmet cosplay going on, because I think I'd rock a good dark helmet. That would be my perspective. So thank you, everybody, for asking questions. All my patrons, all the super noomies. Appreciate your support, your pledge level, no matter how you choose to support me. Happy to give you more time and attention. So I'm going to roll into the Patreon Hangout now, do some behind-the-scenes stuff, do some banter, maybe answer more questions. I think this is the one, since it's Friday, I think patrons get invited to it. Thank you again for your support, no matter how you choose to support us. I appreciate you. I love you. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices.